Okay, got it. Voila. This. Two. Blur. That's better. Don't need my hat. See there? Ay, mucho tiempo. Okay, je parle un peu français. Oh, no. Okay, bienvenue, 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 bienvenue de nuevo. Otra expresión en francés. Is this? That's weird. Ah, there we go. Oh, Nacho. Hola, Nacho. No podéis negociar ahora mismo. Es una broma. Ok, para ti 45. Okay.
Pero tengo una familia, hijos que mantener. Hazme un 30.
Ok, estamos más cercanos, más cerca. Until Lara comes, we can't start.
She's the official, like, start time.
Yeah, kind of. When is it anyway? 3. So welcome. Is there anybody new here? I kind of thought so. With the mask, I'm like, don't think so, but maybe. Okay, welcome, welcome. Bienvenido. Okay. Okay, welcome. Oh, we have another person. Is that Lara? No, Julieta. I'm gonna change this so we don't look at Nacho.
So the global ring room when Martina comes in.
Ah,
Will be the bridge.
you guys want to see me? Probably not. You see me anyways. Okay, well, welcome to our Sunday English Sangha, now in its 6th year of meeting together here in Madrid. And for those of you who don't know, who are new, we're going to meditate for 32 minutes, usually ends up about 32 minutes. And I'll give a little bit of guidance, and then we'll have some period in silence to practice. And then I give a little bit more guidance for kind of a different style. And then we practice again for another 8 minutes or so. Thank you, Carlos. And for those of you who haven't been coming these last few weeks, I think so we're tracking what is called the 7 factors of awakening, or the 7 factors of enlightenment, which is one of many Buddhist lists. This one is one of the more accepted, regardless of the type of Buddhism or the branch of Buddhism. This is pretty widely accepted as having been taught by the Buddha. And so we've been on this. The first one is mindfulness, which, by the way, attention plena or consciencia plena. It's interesting. I'm hearing that more and more, and I know in French it's plein conscience, no? Which, yeah, I haven't kind of figured out what that means, but mindfulness is essential for all of our practices, right? We need to be aware in a non-craving, non-aversive way, just simply being aware with some kindness. So that's the first one. And now where we've been on is investigation, which is the second one. And what we did last week, and maybe even the week before that, we can do it again if you want, is during the meditation, in the back of your mind, notice whether you have, or your mind has a tendency to want more pleasure or want less pain, or doesn't know what the hell it wants. That's the third option, confused. So whether your mind is, oh, God, that felt good, I want more of that. For instance, you get 2, 3, 4 breaths together, that feels good, I want more. Or, God, my knee hurts, I wish it would stop, I want to move, that sound is irritating me, I wish it would stop. Or whether you kind of go back and forth between wanting and not wanting. Because those are the 3 poisons, we call them. Greed, the first one, I want more. Hatred, the second one, I don't want this. Confusion, the third one. I'm confused. Okay, and that's essentially what we want to uncover in the investigation. So maybe just keep it in the back of your mind. And so what we'll do is the first 20 minutes or so, we're going to try to center the mind, probably breath or body, breath, or sounds. And then in the final 10 minutes, we're going to do more of a vipassana style or insight meditation, where you allow whatever to arise to be your anchor. It's a little more open. Hello, Martina, welcome. Okay, are there any questions? How are you guys doing on Zoom? I know I totally didn't talk to you at all, but I know you're there. Very good. Thumbs up, like that. So no questions? Okay, and if you're really sleepy, investigation works really good for sleepiness because it results in energy. Wound up. Okay, everybody except Jesus. When you have a good posture. I might put on my blanket. Is the temperature okay? People good? I'm going to put this on because it looks more like a meditation teacher when you have it on. No, actually, I love how it just kind of contains me. I feel contained. Okay, ready, set, go. Okay, so let's find our way here into this present moment here in Saladana on Sunday. And a good way to do that, to arrive mentally, is to connect the attention, the mind's attention, to the body. You can do it with the breath, you can do it with sounds. We usually here on Sundays, we usually start with the body. The more gross, you might say, more obvious. Anchor. In part because the body is always in the present moment. It can't get into the future and doesn't stay in the past. So we just feel our body. Maybe you have feelings of energy flowing through your body. Maybe you can feel where your body is touching the floor, the cushion, the chair. Maybe you feel some weight. Maybe there's some discomfort here and there. It's okay, if you need to kind of move a little bit just to settle in. So now try with your attention, try to feel the whole sitting posture at once. Envelop, wrap your attention around the body, into the body. So you can use the sitting posture as an anchor. So when your mind drifts away, starts to think about something, when you notice that, because it might go on and you may not even notice, but as soon as you do, we try to let the thoughts go gently but firmly, come back to an anchor, come back to a home base. So it could be the body, the sitting posture. And it could be the breathing body. You just feel your whole body moving with the breath, the rhythm of the breath. That could be your anchor. Or you can find a spot, a single spot where the breath is easy to follow, and follow the breath. Let the breath be the anchor. Maybe you follow it at the belly, at the chest, at the nostrils. Maybe you have an established practice with an established place. So just go there. Let that be your anchor, coming back again and again, each time you notice your thinking. Now, if you do have sleepiness, if you're feeling a little sleepy, then try a narrow focus. Try like the nostrils. Try to generate energy by paying attention at the nostrils. And if you're not feeling sleepy and maybe even excited, anxious, energetic, maybe do a bigger awareness, the whole body or the breath at the belly. And finally, you can use sounds, hearing as well, as an anchor. Sometimes a very nice way to settle down the mind. It's very receptive, very little doing, sort of being and hearing. So pick your anchor, coming back to it, trying to stay with it. And then when the mind wanders off, coming back again with kindness, curiosity, without judgment, without criticism. Maybe by now you've noticed a pattern of the mind. Is it seeking? Is it reaching out? Is it wanting more? Or is it pushing away, wanting something to be different, wanting something to go away? Or is it moving between those and other things, kind of lost? So we just notice this with interest, without judgment, with curiosity, without criticism. They're just patterns, they're just habits of the mind. If you are still wrestling with persistent thought, maybe even obsessive thought, try dropping into the body with the attention and seeing if you can identify any bodily sensations that might be connected to thinking. Could be tension or contraction, stress, excitement. Doesn't matter what it is. Just find it and notice it, feel it, experience it. Sometimes that will also loosen up the thinking, at least for a while. So if you're willing and the mind is maybe a little more settled, we can transition to a more open awareness, allowing whatever arises to be the anchor, allowing sounds to be the anchor if they're the most obvious thing, or sensations in the body, pain even, or the breath, or thoughts. So you just pay attention to whatever is most obvious and you watch it until it passes or another thing arises. Creating a continuity of mindfulness. Continuity. Noticing how things just come, stay a while, and go. Nothing permanent. So no matter how your meditation has gone, or where the mind has been, we can always start again in any given moment. So let's come back to the body. Re-inhabiting, re-infusing the body with awareness. Feeling it, it may feel different than before. Maybe there's body parts sleeping or little pain here and there, or might even feel less, maybe numb. Again, things are always changing, so we just notice it, feel it, re-ground our mind into the body. And then if you're willing, bringing your attention to your heart space, to your chest area. Maybe putting your hands there just to feel it, create some contact. And from here, thanking yourself for your practice, for the goodness of your practice, for having taken time out of your day to meditate together in Sangha, whether it be in Saladhana or at home through Zoom or YouTube. And acknowledging the other people who are practicing with us, thanking them for their practice and the goodness of their practice, supporting us. And then imagining you can extend out this goodwill, this appreciation, this gratitude in all directions, just radiating out of our bodies, out of our skin, like a sun. Touching all life. And when you hear the sound of the bell, just see what arises. Do you want more? Do you want less? Are you unsure? All good. Thank you all very much. Very nice. If anyone's curious, we went exactly 32 minutes and 23 seconds. So last week, we attempted to maybe have some mindful communicating, mindful dialogue. And we had a vote, and I thought it came out about 50-50, but then when we actually tried to actualize it, it probably only was about 20 or 25% of the people chose to talk. And the other 75% chose to walk. And so I thought, rather than agitate your mind with a decision, we will just walk today. Is that okay online? We'll just walk, do maybe a 8-minute. I know Josie, you should have come last week because we had, yeah, but yeah, you weren't here. You might have inspired people. There was room for, a little analysis or joking. It's like so many of us have been in lockdown for so long, right? We've been in our houses. We haven't been socializing nearly as much. And some of us, like maybe Josie, who's really has a lot of ganas to start to do that. And there's others like, I'm not quite ready for that. Maybe another couple months or something. Anyways, I have no idea why it came out the way it did. But so first, before we do a walking meditation, I just like to ask, is there anybody who has a question or a comment they'd like to make about the meditation? No? Okay. So now we're going to do about an 8-minute walking meditation. Is anybody new to walking meditation? Okay, good, good. I get to not only, let's see, yeah, I will demonstrate. And there isn't just one way, like so many meditations, right? There's varieties, but if I do, well, you guys know how. So you're not going to see me, but. So we just pick a path of maybe a couple meters, right? So we can all do it. And rather than have everybody move the cushions and so forth, just find a couple meters where you're not going to bump into anybody, okay? And what we want to do is we want to put the attention into the feet, especially into the bottoms of the feet where it's touching the floor. And like this, just in and of itself, just standing, feeling your feet like this is a great meditation. And this is something we can do anywhere, right? When we're waiting in line, to get our padron or whatever. Actually, those go quite fast, but you just feel it. And anytime we can interrupt that thinking process, we benefit. Okay? And this will do it. Sit there and feel your feet. And for walking, we just very slowly walk so we can stay in contact with our feet and our mind. Eyes are open, so we don't bump into anybody or fall. And just feel the contact, feel the movement of the legs. Get to your chosen couple meters. Stop. Know you're stopped. Know you're turning. We're not going anywhere. It's back and forth. I tell you, it can feel very good. You know, it's a very slow moving meditation, but yeah, it'd be quite nice for both the mind and the body. And like in retreats, especially in the Theravada tradition that we kind of follow here, this is what you do. You go back and forth. You sit, you walk. You sit, you walk. And maybe then there's lunch, whatever, and then sit, walk, sit, walk. So we'll practice that for about 8 minutes. Of course, thoughts are going to come, right? And it's the same idea where we try to let the thoughts just go their merry way, and then put your attention back in the feet. Now, if you're really attuned, you know, you can even do with your breath. Inhale. Exhale. Yeah, you don't have to do that if you want to. And then another thing you could do if you want, but this one might get embarrassed, but when you're thinking, when you notice you're thinking, you can stop. Stop walking. And people will know you're thinking. You just stop, reground yourself. Sometimes a thought is really compelling. You need to think about it a while. You know, you might stand there for a minute, you know, until it's done. Okay, now I can. Okay, any questions? You guys are all good, right? You know how to do it. So I'll set the timer for 8 minutes and I'll ring the bell when it's time to come back to our seats.
Thank you. Thank you for your willingness and for coming back. Some of you could have just kept right on walking right out the door. We didn't used to do the walking meditation on Sundays, and I'm really glad we've adopted it because I really enjoy it. For some people, maybe like me included, when I'm in motion, it seems like my mind then wants to be in motion as well. And so it's a really good practice for me to try to be present and at the same time be in motion. Yes, I've really been enjoying it. So what we're going to do, well, I'm going to do two things. I want to ask you all some questions about Saladhana, get some opinions. So I'm going to save a few minutes at the end for that, and hopefully you can help me with some kind of steering ideas or directional ideas. But until then, we're going to talk a little bit more about the 7 factors of awakening. And we were on investigation last week, and we're going to pick up where we were, which was on the personality types of the mind and how we shouldn't identify with them. So maybe some of you were able to see during the meditation that your mind had a tendency, it maybe wanted some pleasure, wanted to feel good, wanted sensory, enjoyment. And then maybe you might have noticed that maybe your mind was more aversive, like it didn't want pain, it didn't want this uncomfortable position, it didn't want the sounds or whatever it might be. And then the third kind of personality type is one that's kind of confused and goes back and forth maybe between those two. And there's no real consistency. And these are important because they're connected to what are considered the 3 poisons, the 3 root causes of our suffering: greed, hatred, confusion, or delusion. We usually say delusion in English, which doesn't translate very well into Spanish, but we could say confusion or ignorance. That's the third one. So first step might be, oh gosh, yeah, my mind really is desirous, right? It wants pleasure. It's always looking for pleasure.
And if it doesn't get it, it gets upset. So that could be like the first step. And then the second step might be, oh, that means I'm a desirous person. That means I'm a greedy person. This means this is who I am. And this is a dangerous pitfall, but it's also a fruitful area of practice, because we can hopefully notice the mind's tendency as if it's somebody else's mind, right? As if it's somebody on television or in a Netflix movie or whatever. We're just observing it, we're noticing it, but we're not identifying with it. We're not buying it. It's not that I'm greedy, it's just that my mind has desirous tendencies. And it's not my fault, really, that my mind has these things. You know, most of the mind's tendencies, especially the really deep ones, they were formed when we were just children, right? And they became formed that way because of how our parents were. And our parents were formed that way because of how their parents were. You know, and you could just go back, who knows, thousands of years. You know, maybe this is how the Neanderthals were. I don't know. Supposedly most Europeans have like 2% Neanderthal gene in them. So kind of a point of view, a position, a belief system that we have, especially in the West, Western Buddhism, I might say, Occidental Buddhism, is it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility. So we don't blame ourselves for having these tendencies. Jesus and I were talking about this before. You know, my mind might come up with some really angry thoughts, mean, you know, vindictive, vengeful thoughts. And the practice is just to notice and maybe say, okay, thank you and bye-bye, or whatever. Not to say, oh, I'm a terrible person as a result. And they might even, in fact, one thing I wanted to do before the meditation, and I didn't do it, but I'm going to do it right now, is I wanted to read a little quote from Sayadaw Tejaniya, because he just has these wonderful, pithy little things. I could probably find it on there, but I'll read it out loud. So this is an email that I get every day from a guy who collects it from an actual monk, a living monk, who lives in Myanmar, Burma, it used to be called Burma, Myanmar. And he writes, or he taught, tension never takes hold in the mind alone. If there is tension in the mind, so you can notice if your mind is like grinding away at something, it's obsessing, you know, it's contracted. If there is tension in the mind as a result of the unwholesome roots, greed, hatred, delusion, which we've been talking about, then it will be reflected in tension somewhere in the body. Consciously relaxing those physical tensions is a kind of meditation. And this is really what we, especially in the West, where, you know, the teachings of the Buddha have kind of been fused quite a bit with modern psychology and what we know about the body and psychology and so forth. And so, for instance, the somatic memory that the body has of things like trauma and, you know, various other things that might have happened to, especially when we're young, we're understanding more and more how to discharge them, and that we can discharge them from the body. This is something the Buddha knew 2,600 years ago, that you just go into the body and you feel it. I mean, it's that simple. Now, there was somebody in one of the classes I attended this week where when she meditates, her mind goes to a scary place. So for some people, there might be so much trauma or blockage in the body that it's very difficult to go in there, feel it, and stay there. This was my case 2 years ago. And so then we kind of go to the extremities of that blockage or that trauma. We feel what we can without becoming overwhelmed. Now, maybe we'll cry. I mean, I think it was Ajahn Chah, who is probably one of the more prominent teachers of the type of meditation we do here and in the United States and so forth. He says, if you haven't cried, if you've meditated and you haven't cried, you really haven't meditated. So if you've been meditating and you haven't cried yet, as far as Ajahn Chah is concerned, you still haven't meditated. You need to cry. And if we feel our pain, well, crying is is the appropriate response, right? It's nature's way of discharging that toxicity through tears, through the grieving process. So we just feel what we can, and we embrace what we can. And because they're connected, the mind and the body are connected. If there's tension in the mind, there's also tension in the body. If there's tension in the body, almost for sure there's tension in the mind. It's going to relax the mind too. So it's a form of meditation to just sit, feel whatever arises, even if it's an unpleasant sensation, feel it and relax it, just like you would a muscle. You can do it with your nervous system in any way. I'm going to go to share screen here for a moment. Kindle right here. For those of you who weren't here last week, so this is a book that I rely on very, very much, Joseph Goldstein's mindfulness book, probably the best book written about mindfulness from a Buddhist perspective, an early Buddhism perspective. This is a Spanish version, which for those of you who want to read it in Spanish, I mean, I'm not a native speaker, but it reads beautifully as it does in English. And it's been translated into several languages now. So reading from that book, and we're still on investigation. So seeing personality as not self. This is so fundamental, but also very confusing. Okay, it's one of the things that trips up people when they first start to learn about Buddhist teachings is, what is this concept of not self? Right? Does this mean I'm not here, that there's no gym or whatever? And it doesn't mean that. So seeing personality as not self. So as I mentioned, it reveals a lot about our basic personality structure, the personality structure of our mind: greedy, aversive, confused. So he shows how we can turn these types into a positive. So for the greedy or desirous type, mostly seeing what it likes and what it wants, through wisdom, this quality is transformed into faith and devotion, where there is a movement towards the wholesome. I mean, it's like, yay, just listen to that. Okay, I've got a greedy mind, a desirous mind, but if I apply wisdom, which is the antidote for ignorance, right? If I apply this knowledge, then I can transform it into faith and devotion and a movement towards wholesome. I'll take that. The next group, aversive types, typically see what is wrong with their world and with everyone in it. Am I going to be able to move this out of the way? Yes. Right? So this is is an extreme adverse person, but where they just see everything is negative, And in its positive transformation, aversion becomes discriminating intelligence. I like that. Basically, wisdom, right? We're able to see more clearly. And that's interesting, to come from that really negative place where they don't believe anything to a place where they believe the right amount, right? They can discern it, which is different than judgment. They can see it clearly. And then finally, the deluded type or the confused type, they generally don't notice much of anything. Kind of harsh. But in its enlightened aspect, delusion transformed into great equanimity. Which I get that. right? Because they're not really, you or me or whoever it is, they're not really greedy, that tension that comes with that, and they're not really aversive or hateful, which the energy that comes with that, they're more confused, so then they can settle into this equipoise, this equanimity more easily. I think for those of us who are greedy or aversive, getting to equanimity is a longer journey. It takes a little bit more time. The greedy one? So the greedy, it's in blue, right? The greedy or desirous type mostly sees what it likes, what it wants. So it's always looking for what it thinks is gonna make me feel better. Okay, so he writes here that the value, I'm reading right here now. I'll probably stop with that. What color should I make it? How about orange? The value of such personality template is that by recognizing our own patterns and those of others, we begin to understand them all as being impersonal. Impersonal, not personal, not self. Simply as the playing out of habitual tendencies rather than as the expression of some reified sense of self, reified as a sense of real. Right? They become less of an unconscious prison and more the playground of transformation. So I'll stop reading from there. I think a little bit more, but maybe that'll be for next time. This comes, for some of you, hopefully it already has. And for those of you who are kind of new, it might sound difficult, but this observing without identifying, observing without thinking that I am my thoughts, I am my tendencies, this comes with practice. It just does. If you get on the path and you practice meditation on a regular basis, you will start to let go of this. You will see that these things just come and they're not your fault. But because they are our responsibility, because like if they're not ours, whose responsibility are they? Right? Somebody has to take responsibility. Well, just being on the path, coming here on Sundays, and now you can come here 7 days a week. There's meditations here 7 days a week, and hopefully you meditate at home. You just keep it up, and this is taking responsibility. This is a form of taking responsibility. And over time, you'll just start to realize, no. Some of the thoughts will be painful. Some of them you really wish they hadn't happened, or worse, your speech, or even worse, your actions. It's like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? But they will start to diminish, and the identifying will start to diminish, and the forgiving will start to increase, and the compassion will start to increase, because you start to realize these are just habitual patterns. They're not you. They're not who you are. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Is there anybody who would like to add something or say something about this not self and these types of person? Yes, please.
So I'm curious about it. So those are not what you are. Is there something that you are in the Buddhist view?
Not really. It's a very good question. And probably in early Buddhism, no, we're really nothing. We're just sort of this conscious awareness that passes through and then disappears, right? But out of Buddhism came out of Hinduism, and in their perspective, we are the awareness, and that this awareness is part of a universal infinite awareness. And so for some people, and I'd say I'm kind of included in that group, I sort of like that a little bit better. But I may da igual. Either I'm nothing or I'm part of an infinite awareness. It isn't going to change much. But some people, and who knows who's right? We could be part of this infinite awareness, and all things are aware, all things are conscious, and we're just a part of it. Or we're just kind of passing through. But I mean, there is you, the fabricated you, your name and your body and all that kind of stuff, but it's just temporary. There's no permanent you, no permanent self. And some people find that a little, I want to be something. I want to be a somebody. I want to have a self. I want to be a self. But after a while, because the self just brings suffering, really. I mean, if you really get into it, this is the main cause of our suffering, is our insistence on this self-reflective thinking all the time. Me. The egotism, you might call it, or egoism. This is really the cause of so much of our suffering. Real Madrid lost. Oh, God, I feel so, because I think I'm Real Madrid or I own it, right? Or this body, I'm getting so old. I mean, I look at myself like, oh my God, I feel like I'm still 20. How come I don't look 20? This could cause a lot of suffering. But when you start to identify, it's like, okay, it's just part of life. Everything's impermanent. The easy way, I love how the three characteristics of all things are that they're impermanent, that they're unsatisfying ultimately, in part, mainly because they're impermanent, and they're impersonal. Impermanent, imperfect. I like how that one kind of works together with the I and the P. Impermanent, imperfect, impersonal. Those are the three characteristics of all things. And if we can remember that and really buy it, own it, believe it, the freedom is there. And at first, it comes and it goes. It isn't something. It's just like, I can go from being a Catholic to immediately not believing in a soul. It takes a little practice. Any other questions? Yeah, Josie.
So I hope you'll explain this properly. So with these three personality types, how much value, so ultimately you're wanting to classify yourself to then let go of it. And then it feels, there's so much like, the classification for me feels so hard.
Yeah.
That I wonder how beneficial ultimately is it really to put myself in one of those boxes, as opposed to just, if I'm able then instead to notice the different moments of each of those and allow that to be the classification.
Yeah, I would say that if it's not useful, don't do it. Yeah, if it's not helping you, and you're an advanced practitioner, you've been practicing for years, and so maybe you don't really need to do this. But for some of us, the pattern that may stem from the greed or from the aversion, like our mind is constantly just angry at people and stuff like that, we kind of need it so that we can, because if you can't see it, you can't change it. Right? If we can't see it, we can't let it go. So some of us, we need to kind of step back, try to see what our tendencies are in order so we can start to work on them a little bit. But if it isn't helpful because you see enough, then I wouldn't go backwards and do it. It is number 2. It's not number 7. The reason it's important is because the causes of suffering are greed, hatred, and delusion. And if you have a mind that falls into one of those, then you're going to cause yourself suffering. But if you're aware enough where you don't fall into one of these habits, or you fall in and get right back out because you're on top of things, then you don't need to spend too much time with it. There's no point to kind of beat on something that's already kind of in the, behind you.
Yeah, just to clarify, it's not even that I don't see these things happening. I see them happening, but it causes more thought for me going like, well, am I more, is there more
Yeah.
of that? And then I get like, I
Yeah.
hear a whole story about like, okay, there was 5 of those. And, you know,
You do the math. Yeah, it's the same with the Vedana one that we do sometimes, right? Where we'll do the Vedana, the second foundation of mindfulness, where you try to see whether something is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, right? This is the same thing, right? That's another one where, was that pleasant or was that unpleasant? Yeah. If it's producing more thought, if it's producing more darle vueltas and your mind is just, I would say let it go. If one of these suggestions is not onward leading towards a reduction in your suffering, don't use it. I like how they say it in the 12 steps, I think it comes. Take what you like and leave the rest, right? So if it ain't working for you, just leave it here in Saladana. Just take the good ones. Okay, how do we do with time? Okay, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, is like, so we did.
Oh, but Jesus, hold on. Were you guys able to hear the 2 questions, or maybe through my answers you're able? A lot of kind of. Okay, I'm sorry. I should repeat them. This time I will. Okay, go ahead.
Right. So we don't like labeling like sometimes, right?
You said we don't like labeling?
We have been like
Yeah.
labeling like states like planning,
Yeah.
worrying, like things like that.
Yep.
So you said like if it's like useful towards like reducing suffering, like is it like handy to just say, okay, I'm just like planning this thing, this like an ongoing thing, like going on like every day, like planning, moving somewhere else, and it's like a constant like worry. Is it useful to kind of like just decide whenever like that story comes up, just like to say planning, moving, planning?
Yes.
Is that useful, like so specific?
Yes, absolutely. So his question was, if we have obsessive thought, if we're like thinking about planning, making a move or whatever, we just keep thinking about it, are the labels, the etiquetas, are they useful? To just say, notice it and say, oh, planning, moving, you could say that. Yes, if they are useful, and labeling can be very useful, because as soon as you notice it and label it, you're in the present moment. Now you're not obsessing. You're observing. And then you just put a little label on it. For that moment, you're good. Right? And if you could track your mind a little bit more and label again, where is your mind now? You're good. Anytime, we could do this anytime. We could say, okay, what is my mind doing right now? Where is my attention focused right now? Anytime we can say that. And as soon as we do, we're back. We've come back. With that question, we've come back. Right? And so labels can be, because they keep you tracking, they keep you with your present moment experience. Now, at some point, much like Josie and these other things, you might find you don't need them anymore. You can just notice and come back. But until that happens, and that might be years, use the labels. There's some schools, like the Mahasi school, that uses labels. I don't even know that they do stop. They keep using them. Very helpful. Very helpful. Okay. Oh, this is great. Normally, for a lot of times, there's no questions at all. Okay.
Really know what the question is.
Oh, okay.
But maybe I can just tell you I'm thinking with that. I don't know.
Okay.
Something.
See if I find a question.
So I'm actually thinking about a particular person with those personalities. I think I know that I'm the second one. This other person, I think it's the first one, the graded. So I see this person suffering because when something doesn't make them happy, doesn't give them pleasure, they can immediately remove it and push it away. Whether that's like a person, a friend, even this person made me angry because of this. I don't want this person in my life anymore. And they just like easily can like push those kinds of things and those away. For me, that's really hard because I'm like the negative. And I'm like, oh, but you need to be upset about this, you need to like feel sad about this, you need to like experience that. Yeah, I don't know what my question is, but that's like what I was thinking
Yeah.
with that.
Okay, so I'll just tell the group quickly on Zoom. So what's your name?
Lindsay.
Lindsay had a comment about how she sees how she's an aversive type, or she has that mental personality. Then she has a friend who's actually the greedy type, and that person just so easily can just let things go when they don't bring them what they want. And Lindsay, has difficulty with that. So I don't actually see a question, but I will say this: as we read with the Joseph Goldstein book, being able to see that these are just habitual patterns, just habitual tendencies, caused by causes and conditions in our life, not only in ourselves, but in others, like in your case, you're seeing it in another person, then we'll have a better understanding and maybe a little bit more compassion for ourselves and for them. Maybe in this case, maybe you need a little bit more towards yourself because I'm sensing maybe, but there's a little like envy, or you kind of wish that you could let some of these things go and not beat up on yourself or beat up on them in your mind. But we just be compassionate with how you are. And one other thing I want to mention is, so we have this level of awareness, let's say, that, oh, my mind is kind of adversive. Like in your case, you're kind of an adversive type. This other person has this other one. Ooh, I wish I was different. Well, that right there is an aversive thought. I wish I was different, right? And then you might even have another thought on top of that one that's like, God, I wish I didn't have those thoughts, right? And you can just keep piling on. And all these thoughts that are piling onto each other are going to be habitual tendencies. They're not who you are, okay? You won't get to really who you are, whether we really are this or not, I don't know. But until you get to the point of just interest and curiosity. And kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Look at that. I wanted it to be different at 4 different levels or whatever it is. And then when you finally stop with that and you just let it be, you don't try to change anything, you just notice it for what it is, then you're there. Now you're mindful, being mindful, which could be our true nature. I have no idea about that, but that's where we want to reside. We want to reside in a mindful, kind awareness as much as possible. And this is really what Nibbana is. With those who have reached it, they're just in that state all the time. They're not judging. They're not comparing. They're not greedy. They're not averse. They're just noticing. And they're still eating and, doing normal things. Okay, well, we've gone right to when we normally would stop. So I'm going to not talk about the Saladana, but I want to tell you just one thing. We have not only do we have a web page, but we have an email address, saladana108@gmail. Saladana108@gmail. And if any of you would like to volunteer, would like to lead an activity, would like to be involved with Saladana or the mothership, which is Associación Dhanasati, send us an email. Send us an email. And if you want to help kind of manage it or whatever, I mean, some of you already do, and thank you very much for your service. But there's room for that here. We have this amazing space and we can do some amazing things. But we need, people. So
Jim?
Yes, that was
Sorry,
neat. Yeah, we could hear you throughout all the speakers, like you're God.
Okay.
Yes, talk to me.
Can you please repeat the email? So it's saladana108@gmail.com.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Where'd my thumb go? Oh, there it is. Oof, my Mac is gonna fall asleep. If we go silent, it's because my computer ran out of batteries, but we'll do a quick metta meditation now. So for those of you new to Metta, we'll do it really fast because we're running a little bit behind. But we use phrases for this one, and we offer phrases to ourselves and to others in hopes that they will be happy, in hopes that they will have well-being. So I'll speed Metta. Thanks for hanging in there. Okay, I came to Martina's on Thursday, and she started with the how should I put it, thank you, the benefactor. So maybe we'll try that. That makes a lot of sense. I usually start it with I, but for some people that can be a little difficult going straight into me. So let's start with somebody or some being you really cherish and love unconditionally. Just imagine that being in front of you. Could be a pet, could be family member, public figure. So we're going to try to offer, kind of like we did at the end of the meditation, goodwill to this being. May you be happy. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease and comfort. So now we'll go to I, me. So same wishes, but we wish it towards ourselves. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease and comfort. And now the difficult person. This is somebody where maybe we have a little resentment, a little hurt. Maybe they did or didn't do something we wanted. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease and comfort. And now lastly, all beings in all directions without exception. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease and comfort. Then in the tradition of renunciation, letting go, let's offer up the fruit of our practice here today, the teachings, our Sangha or community, and our Buddha nature. Offer these up to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence, discrimination, racism, and free from coronavirus. And may all beings find their path, their camino towards the end of their suffering, the reduction of their suffering, the increase of their happiness. May all beings be free. very much. Quite a pleasure. Unfortunately, for the next close to 2 months, I will not be here physically, but hopefully I'll be able to come in through the modern technology of internet. And I hope you guys keep coming and come to the other classes. Thursday we have English with Martina or Josie and several Spanish classes. Every day there's meditation now at Saladama. And just quickly, as most of you know, we do everything here in the spirit of generosity, which is also a 2,600-year-old tradition. The word dana means generosity and giving. And so there's never a charge here for any of the sessions that we offer. We offer them freely. But we do have expenses. And so if you are willing to make a donation, they're very much appreciated. And there's currently 2 boxes. It may go down to 1 box, but right now there's 2 boxes for donations in the entrada there, in the entryway. And for the wooden box, that's for the house. And especially when I'm here, if you could donate to that, we can then pay for the expenses and so forth. Very much appreciate it. And when other teachers are here, of course, they also have expenses and the other boxes there for that. We also, many of us go out afterwards for a little supper and fellowship. Everybody is invited. We usually eat vegetarian, almost always, yeah. And I think that's it that I can think of. Carlos, do you think of anything? Martina, Josie, any announcements or anybody? Nacho, do you have any announcements? Is that a 1 or a no? That's a 0. Okay, good. Okay, well, I think I've held you guys long enough. I thank you all for coming and hope to see you again real soon.
Thank you, Jim. Bye.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks.
Yeah.